Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. Week 7 reaction day. Always a great week in the NFL. Always the unknown, the unpredictable. So it makes this game great. If it was easy, we'd all be bored with it. We're clearly not. Remember, the show goes live 5 days a week. We're off Wednesday and Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. But don't worry, if you miss it, the replay is always there for you on RotoWire YouTube. All right. Anthony Cervino will be coming in shortly to go over some of these game day reactions. Let's start. Hey, big Sunday night game. Little anticlimactic blowout, 31-17. It was somewhat close in the second half for a while, so that was good enough. But what do we see here? So Jalen Hurts apparently got dinged up a little bit. That said, he still played well. He only rushed for 21 yards and 11 carries, but some of those, those were the tush pushes. So he was getting they had a bunch of those 4th and 1s. Maybe the top of my head, it was like 4. That was crazy. Throws for 279 and a couple touchdowns. Again, Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator, is starting to figure some things out. Devontae Smith, whatever it is, he's struggling right now. Some concentration lapses. You could tell some routes aren't quite the way they're supposed to be. Right now, you imagine he'll eventually turn it around, but he hasn't hit 50 yards in any of his last 3 games, and he's getting targets. So he's playing over 94% of the snaps. So, realistically right now, if you have him for fantasy, you hope he cashes and you start. Your expectations are diminished and lowered, and you just hope he gets back on track from where he was at last year. So when we look at this now, we go to A.J. Brown, and that was the one thing that Brian Johnson did get right, that he has been getting him the ball with regularity for about 5 weeks now, and he realized, okay, the offense may not be as crisp as we wanted in setting up plays, but A.J. Brown overcomes all. And then even Dallas Goedert's been involved, at least 42 yards in each of the last 3 games, a pair of games with at least 77 in the score in his last 3. So they definitely have weaponized him, and he really is stepping up right now with Devontae Smith not playing his best football, and he is really playing well after that slow start to the season. He was getting targets. There was only like 1 game, I believe, where Goedert wasn't getting a lot of targets, but overall, it's working. They continue to mostly win. They lost that game to the Jets, but they are 6-1. They're back on track. And defensively, they overcame some of their weaknesses in the middle of the field by taking advantage of a Dolphins injured offensive line. They were able to stop the run game, put them in passing situations, and get quick pressure on Tua, and that really gummed up their offense. So that said, we'll move to the Miami side of the ball. They only run 49 plays to 72 for the Eagles. So they couldn't get the running game going. Second half, they started to get some chunk runs going, but by then it was too little too late. Mostert carries 9 times for 45 yards, gets a 6-yard catch. For fantasy, it gets you about 6 PPR points. And that's about it for that. But we knew it was a tough matchup. We said you got to start Mostert because you never know when the 2 long runs are coming in a game. And he's been good more than not this year, and he's a player you can't sit. Now, Jeff Wilson makes his return from the IR, and got a lot of them wrong, but I was glad I told people to sit him. It was a bad matchup for him. I felt he wouldn't get going, but the thing I didn't know is he would only see 14% of the snaps. So maybe he's being eased back in because Salvon Ahmed had 37% of the snaps, and he was an overachiever, 2 carries for 3 yards and 1 catch for 0 yards. So 3 touches, 3 yards. I'm joking, being a little sarcastic there. But eventually, Jeff Wilson will move into that role until Devon Achane comes back. So, and then we're hoping Achane comes back sooner rather than later. He's got a couple more weeks out, I believe, on the IR. In terms of the receiving game, well, it's Tyreek Hill. Even though they only threw 32 passes, 15 of them went to him. So not quite 50%, but real close to 50% target share. And he continues to be unstoppable. Unfortunately, again, they couldn't get the ball moving late in the game when they had a chance to mount to come back. The pressure just overcome him. Jalen Waddle was in and out of the game, dealing with an injury, ends up catching all 6 of his targets for 63 yards. Obviously, there will be better days for the Dolphins offense. We've seen them play to such a high level, and they will probably get back to those levels. But realistically, playing on the road at Philly had, I guess I said earlier, they were able to take advantage of an injured offensive line and make some things happen. So there was that. So we move on. If you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. If you're on RotoWire YouTube, appreciate everybody making me part of your daily fantasy football routine. It really is important to know that you care enough to stop by. So thank you so much. It means a ton to me. Brian Pope's in the house. Can Minshew sustain a super flex spot going forward? The thing with Minshew is there are going to be some games where there are going to be catastrophic blowups. Isaac, welcome. There are going to be some catastrophic blowups for him. And I can't quantify yesterday. I mean, nobody's moved the ball on Cleveland all year. They had a broken play where Downs got a long touchdown. The Pittman play, he should have been tackled. It was only a second catch of the game, and it went for like 70 yards, I believe. So there was that. So, all that said, Minshew gets it done. He runs for 2 touchdowns. It's the NFL. It's crazy. But I mean, Minshew for Superflex, you got to use him. I mean, I don't know how we can't, any quarterback in Superflex is useful. And he's already shown that he's getting production despite interceptions and fumbles and all that. But there are going to be some really, really tough games. But I think you got to start them. Depending, again, check the start sit stream on Sunday, because if you have a third option, we always can weigh that out. I would not have recommended Minshew to anybody yesterday because no quarterbacks have had success against them. And of course, Minshew being Minshew looks like, Dan Marino, not really, but, looks like Dan Marino out there going crazy. Christian Watson is very disappointing. Well, product of the quarterback, and I was worried about that. Very, very, Jaden Reed got lucky. That touchdown pass was not for him. That pass was for Romeo Doubs. It was thrown behind him. Doubs reaches back. The ball goes off his hands, deflects off to the side, falls right into Jaden Reed's hands. This offense is only going to pass about 30 times a game. And unless they're getting blown out, and then when they're in comeback mode, they'll throw more. But if they're in any games that are close, they're not throwing much. And Jordan Love is very inaccurate, especially intermediate and downfield. And that's going to be really hard for Christian Watson to have sustained success. The occasional catch, sure. But, Christian Watson is in trouble. And Jaden Reed going forward, again, he's the third wheel in the pass game, maybe tied with Musgrave when he's healthy. But Reed's a very good player. He's just stuck in this offense. And they're all stuck in this offense. And we saw fantasy numbers from Jordan Love, but realistically, he's not yet a good quarterback. All right, let's talk about the crazy running back landscape. This is a takeaway from the last couple weeks. Charlene, welcome back. Good to see you back. So first of all, last week with Arizona, a lot of people, myself included, went after Amari DiMercato. I actually had him on a couple of rosters before. And so now last week, obviously you start him. Oh, Keontae Ingram gets 10 carries and 2 targets. Damian Williams gets 8 carries and 1 target. DiMercato gets 2 carries and 1 target. And it was like, wow. But DiMercato last week, funny enough, completely blown out on the snaps, or not on the carries. He outsnaps Ingram 43% to 17, and Damian Williams had his 9 touches on 70% of the snaps. But we come back to yesterday. What happens? So people are starting Ingram, not me, but people are starting Ingram. Doesn't see an offensive snap in the game. Damian Williams plays 18% of the snaps, 1 carry, 2 yards. DiMercato, 13 carries for 58, 4 catches for 17, plays 80%. So good luck figuring out this backfield. I thought that it should have been DiMercato all along. It wasn't. And then Arizona keeps pulling the rug out from under us. So right now, you start DiMercato, but don't be surprised if they pull the rug out on you again. I can't make any sense of what they're doing, but that's it. That's all we have. So it's unfortunate. And then the same thing got done with the Rams. Fortunately, the overnight reporters gave us some insight. People popped a ton of fab on Zach Evans. And he doesn't play. Doesn't see an offensive snap. It was said he would be the number 3 behind Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman. And Charlene picked up Henderson. Very nice. Very nice. He ends up playing Henderson 57% of the snaps, 18 carries for 61, catches a catch for 5 yards, and he scores. So he ends up being a great fantasy play. Royce Freeman chips in 12 carries for 66. So, 6 points, no matter what scoring system you're in, 6.6. But, regardless, again, if you popped money on Evans, that ended up being a bust. You didn't know, just like with DeMercado last week. You didn't know. But what we do know is this. Sean McVay, every week, I know they're not scoring a ton of points. The dude's a genius. He can get his receivers open all day long. He can make any running back in that backfield work now, it seems, except for Cam Akers. whatever that is. Akers worked just fine in the second half of last season, but obviously no longer with the team. So weird, very weird there. And yeah, Charlene, you used them too. Johnny D, welcome. Oh, out of the playoffs. Sorry, man. It's you run into that buzzsaw now and again. Mateo, 0-6, yeah, Bichon. Yeah, unfortunately, Mateo, we have those weird seasons, I know. But yeah, it just happens. It's the weirdest thing. And it's just like the NFL teams, right? We go in thinking teams are that and the other going into the season, and we end up not so much. We're end up holding the bag. Anthony Cervino, crazy 7, welcome in.
What's going on? How are you?
Doing well. I had already talked about Philly Dolphins. We were talking about the crazy running back situations. I talked about how DeMercado last week, he was the pickup, didn't play hardly. This week gets all the work. Ingram gets iced out. And then Zach Evans for the Rams, people popped a bunch of fab on him. He doesn't see an offensive snap. Darrell Henderson looks like a world beater, and Royce Freeman gets 12 carries. What's going on here?
At least from the Rams' point of view, Sean McVay told us it was going to be Henderson and Royce Freeman. I think the initial reaction to Evans was before the Henderson news. He wasn't on the practice. He wasn't called up in the practice squad yet. So I think people were just overzealous because, in theory, he was the only guy left on the roster who was healthy. But this should tell us a lot about Evans. If guys off the street are getting work over him, primarily Royce Freeman. Henderson, okay, he knows the system. Royce Freeman didn't. That should tell us Zach Evans is probably not long for this league.
Yes.
But in the Arizona situation, DeMercado, he should have gotten to work last week. He was productive 2 weeks ago, and then they gave it to Damian Williams and Keontae Ingram, Ingram's never really done anything in the NFL. And then they go back to DeMercado. So hopefully people who dropped the bank to pick up DeMercado 2 weeks ago, they're finally going to get a payoff.
No doubt. And also with that backfield, I had mentioned last week, DeMercado got like none of the work 2 weeks ago, but he led in snaps, 43% of the snaps. So that was weird. But this week it was 18% for Damian Williams. So at least, but again, next week, is there any chance they pull the rug out on us again next week, or is it DeMercado?
I mean, considering, DeMercado didn't blow the doors off things, but 1358, 4 or 5 targets for 17 yards, productive enough in the middle of the pack matchup. So I think they should stick with DeMercado, but anything can happen. But again, Keontae Ingram has shown us nothing, and Damian Williams is probably past his prime. Definitely past his prime.
No question. So, oh my gosh, we at least have to talk about it. Bijan Robinson, poor man was sick. Fantasy managers are waiting for him to get on the field, Algiers piling up 59 yards and 53 receiving yards. Cordero Patterson's getting 10 carries, 56 yards. Bijan, on the last, I think, drive of the game, he gets a 3-yard carry, and that's it. Wow, what's going on for fantasy managers? How do they survive that one?
Well, during the broadcast, I think Arthur Smith, maybe during halftime, but it came out during the broadcast that Bijan Robinson wasn't feeling well, possibly dealing with an illness. I wish we would have known this ahead of time. But definitely, not great for fantasy. I know I had him in a couple of lineups and it really depended on him. So that killed a lot of fantasy managers. I do know DraftKings Sportsbook. I haven't heard anything from FanDuel yet, but DraftKings Sportsbook is going to give bonus bets for all single wagers that Bijan was in. And I believe all parlays where Bijan was the only losing leg, they're going to give back bonus bets. So DraftKings once again doing the right thing.
Yeah, having a heart here, and I imagine Prize Picks will do the same thing. When James Conner got hurt during a game, and I had a prop on him, they just canceled it, voided it out. Yeah. So if they've done that, they probably will do the same here. We'll see how that is. I'll have to check that out later. So the Bears backfield. So hey, Deontay Foreman crushes it, which was great for him. Weird enough though, he gets outsnapped by Darrington Evans again. Evans gets 48% of the snaps, gets 14 carries to 16 for Foreman. It's not like the Bears are planning on, my imagination says when Herbert's back in his lead role, Roschon's back, he's back in his receiving role, and Foreman's back to the inactive list. Why not just give Foreman 30 touches and call it a day and say, you know what? I mean, instead of Darrington Evans. But anyway, who's complaining if you got Foreman because he got 30 PPR points? Travis Homer makes his triumphant return, 4% of the snaps and sees a target, and that's it. Bears backfield, Anthony.
You know, Donta Foreman, I was all in on Foreman this week. I laddered his rushing yards total. That didn't really work out. I think he got a little bit banged up at the end of the game. Anyway, but 3 touchdowns. If you took his anytime touchdown scorer prop, you cash that. You cash the over on his main line. But last year, he had 5 games over 100 yards, and his best game of the year came at the end of the season against Detroit, whose running defense was emerging. So he has some juice left in the tank. Now, you bring up, well, why not just run him into the ground? Number one, I don't think we know when Khalil Herbert's coming back. And when it comes to Roschon Johnson, this is something I've been saying on Face Off. There's a chance Roschon Johnson lands on IR. He has not stepped on a football field or practice since suffering a concussion Thursday Night Football Week 5.
Right.
And the example I'm giving is Sterling Shepard. We've seen Sterling Shepard and end up on season-ending injured reserve, I believe. Definitely injured reserve, possibly even season-ending because of lingering concussion issues. So, normally you get a concussion, you can actually go through practice limited, and then you clear it on Saturday and you're playing a game on Sunday. This guy, Roschon, has not been on the field. He has not practiced in over 2 weeks now. So there is a concern that this could linger, which is why I don't think the Bears are going to run Foreman into the ground.
That's a great piece of insight there. I didn't.
I'm not a doctor.
No, and I didn't take it out to that level. I knew he hadn't practiced, and you just figure, okay, another week. But right, with concussions, you have no idea. And it's a brain injury. Every person's different. And like you said, some are season enders, some are 1 or 2 weeks off. I know this year players typically don't come back the next week.
Yeah.
So it used to be a lot of players did come back. That's not the case. So over in Cleveland, Jerome Ford dings up an ankle. Fortunately for him, he had a 69-yard touchdown run early in that game because otherwise he had 10 carries for 5 yards. And that was with Grover Stewart out. Kareem Hunt plays 25% of snaps, dealing with a thigh injury, so he was a true game-time decision, and he only goes 3 yards a carry, so that Colts defense was bringing it, but he scores a pair of touchdowns. Pierre Strong is what I want to mention. If Ford misses time, Pierre Strong stepped into a 31% role, 8 carries, 25 yards, not much, but if Ford misses time, we're all desperate for running backs. Strong likely gets work because I don't think they have any inclination to run Kareem Hunt into the ground either. Thoughts?
Yeah, you have to pick up Kareem Hunt. Normally, this is a 2-headed monster backfield anyway. Even with Nick Chubb, he would concede carries last year to Hunt, a little bit to Ford this year, Dearness Johnson in the past. Depending on how long Ford is out for, you have to go pick up Pierre Strong. This year, in whatever time he's gotten, week 3, 4.5 yards a carry. Then he had Baltimore 5 for 49, 9.8 yards per carry. Yesterday, 8 for 25, 3.1, his worst game of the year. But this guy can get some run. He's also, New England perceived him as a solid pass catcher out of the backfield, so he could provide some PPR value.
Exactly. Now, in the Washington backfield, this game closer out. They soiled the bed. Brian Robinson plays 49% of the snaps, gets 8 carries. Chris Rodriguez plays 13% and gets 7 carries for 31 yards. Now, you can say, outplayed Robinson, but whatever. And Antonio Gibson remains in his constant role where he sees a few targets, a couple carries, 38%. Is there any chance that Chris Rodriguez muddies his backfield up more long-term, or do you think it was a one-game anomaly?
It could be a one-game thing. I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty with this Washington team and this Washington offense was a little bit weird. They were clicking earlier in the year, and we are seeing it more and more as I bet on Terry McLaurin props. When Terry McLaurin is involved, this offense looks a lot different. And we saw that in the second half when McLaurin blanks in the first half and then goes for over, 70, 80 yards.
Yes.
In the second half, he nearly got that game-winning touchdown if it wasn't tapped on a helmet. They need to feature their stars. Terry McLaurin, I believe Antonio Gibson's a lot better than the workload he's given, especially as a receiver out of the backfield.
Yes.
It's just mind-blowing that they're not using their best players, and then we see why that this team keeps hitting a brick wall.
There are so many players I wish would get traded by next week's deadline. Gibson would be one if you went to a team that really wanted to feature him as a receiver. There's just a laundry list of players. Hey, everyone, remember, RotoWire Fantasy Football Live comes at you 5 days a week, but you can always catch the replay if you're late or miss it. 11 a.m. Eastern. We're off Wednesdays and Thursdays. Anthony's on every Monday. You can find Anthony at The Real NFL Guru. You can find me over at Jim Coventry NFL. Yep. We're going to react to some more games here. So, Charlene's asking about Jahmyr Gibbs. What were your thoughts on Jahmyr Gibbs in the game yesterday, Anthony? He ends up playing the full workload. He gets his yards mostly in garbage time, which is fine. Counts for fantasy. Overall thoughts?
Rightfully 126 total yards, scores his first NFL touchdown. I actually liked Gibbs yesterday, despite, a middle-of-the-pack tough matchup against Baltimore. Garbage time still counts. 9 of 10 targets, 58 yards, 11 for 68 on the ground, and that touchdown. In terms of yards per touch, Jahmyr Gibbs is the real deal. It's just a matter of why aren't they giving him more of a workload? I get David Montgomery. He's the hammer. He's a short yardage guy, but we need to see more of Gibbs. This Lions team came back down to earth. They were brought back down to earth yesterday by the Baltimore Ravens. They need to possibly retool the way they do things. And obviously it's not on Montgomery. They didn't lose this game because David Montgomery wasn't on a football field. But this offense did look a little bit more explosive, albeit in garbage time with Gibbs. And I think that's the part that's missing here. When as good as the Lions defense is, they're going to have games like this where they're going to go down points. And they need to be able to answer, and they're missing that explosiveness. And guys like Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to add that explosiveness. So will we see the offensive coordinator add these guys a little bit more? And because they need to be able to pop and score points, right? We see there's a few teams, Dallas too. You're down 2 scores, you're probably losing the football game because most teams can play with the lead. Look at Philly last year. You play quarterback, you call an offense differently with a 2-possession lead versus a 2-possession deficit.
Right.
And the Lions are one of those teams that they don't have that explosive prowess right now to get back in the game.
I was very disappointed in Dan Campbell. Look, this is no longer a team he's trying to teach. This is a team that came into this game at 5-1. They were a legitimate contender for the conference. He is putting his starting players out there with 3 minutes left in a game. They're down 32 points. If one of those players got a serious injury, talk about the heat he would catch from his own team about that. Look, I get it when it was in the infancy of this team, when they were trying to build something. Yeah, you battled to the last whistle.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
We saw it a few times, and I get the Giants are in a different spot. When they were getting blown out by Dallas in week 1, they had Daniel Jones still in there. I think some of these coaches are just trying to play old school football right now. But on the other side, I do say, well, what if Jared Goff goes down? Where is your season? What if Penei Sewell goes down? Where does this season go?
Exactly. So that same game, the Ravens, this is what it was supposed to look like in the preseason. We were all excited. And I'm not going to say this is what we're going to see every week, but Lamar Jackson looked like 2019 MVP level Lamar Jackson. He was surgical, getting the ball to all of his different receivers. Nobody in terms of yardage went off for them, but Jackson comes up with 357 yards, just getting everybody yardage in the receiving game. Mark Andrews gets the 2 touchdowns, and Nelson Aguilar chips in with 1. And of course, we see an 80-yard pass to Gus Edwards where everybody forgot to defend him. And not that anybody ever wants to defend him, right? So, just dumps it off, and he just tries to rumble 80 yards. It's like, Oh my gosh, get to the end zone, get to the end zone. And he couldn't. They finally caught him. But anyway, Ravens offense, Anthony, what do you see here?
If this offense plays the way it did yesterday against Detroit, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with moving forward. Now, granted, looking at Lamar Jackson has completed at least 70% of his passes in all but one game this season. So we are seeing a better form of Lamar Jackson, the passer. But yesterday we saw that explosiveness, 357 yards, 13.2 yards per attempt, didn't really have to run a lot. And this is the wrinkle that Todd Monken wanted to add into this offense. And, it took a little bit of time, took 7 games to get there, but we are starting to see this thing pop. The receivers are getting healthy. The whole team overall is getting healthy. And, this upcoming schedule, you got the Cardinals, Seattle. Next 2 games should be very much winnable. And then we'll see who's for real against Cleveland in week 10. Because Cleveland, as weird as things are with the Cleveland Browns right now and Deshaun Watson, they are a really tough football team.
Oh my gosh, no doubt about that. Yes. Lee Ving says got offered Bijan for Nico Collins. Bijan's fine. Honestly, he had bathroom issues. I'll just say that was be polite. He had bathroom issues, and he's probably fine today, if not tomorrow. So yeah, Bijan, 100%. He'll be absolutely fine. This was totally a 3-4 hour probably injury, and that was probably about it. All right, Anthony, let's talk about the Chiefs. Oh my goodness, finally. Patrick Mahomes had a 3-touchdown game against the Bears. Maybe he had 3 or 4. I think it was 3 against them. 306 was the highest yard total he had all season. Man, he got the offense on his back yesterday, got people involved. Travis Kelce was a nightmare, 179 yards worth. And Patrick Mahomes threw most of his production in the first half. He ends up with 424. I want to say he was at or over 300 in the first half, or not real close to him. And he had, I think, 3 of his 4 touchdowns. And we were thinking it was going to be one of these 500-yard games with 5 touchdowns, but the offense had broke down a little in the second half. But Jared McKinnon, another touchdown called back by an illegal block. Joe Tooney nailed somebody in the back. Maybe that helped him get the touchdown, but it's the second half of the year he had a long touchdown call back. Pacheco saw a little less rushing work, but he gets the receiving touchdown. He's fine for you. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I had to play him in a league, Anthony. I'm in a deep league with 3 flexes, 14 teams. And it was like, all right, Justin Watson's out. Who's going to get the deep passes? And Valdes-Scantling sunk, but I go, Watson always gets a couple deep passes. And it was a broken play. It worked. Another player I had to start was in one of these crazy deep leagues was Aguilar, who scored a touchdown. Anyway, I digress. Rashee Rice, another solid game. Yeah. He's getting 4 to 6 targets a game, but every week he's putting up some yardage. He's finding the end zone. Is this just they played the Chargers, who are terrible, who had no answers in the middle of the field, or are the Chiefs maybe on their way to reclaiming the dominant offense?
I think they're on their way to reclaiming the dominant offense. And you bring up Rashee Rice. He's going to be a big part of it. I've been pounding the Rashee Rice drum for a couple of weeks now. I think back going into that Minnesota game, my eyes popped when I saw the schedule. And Rice was coming off week 4 down game against the Jets. And since that game, 3 straight games, double-digit PPR points, 2 touchdowns in his past 3 games, 5, 4, and 6 targets. He's starting to play a lot more snaps. I don't know if Rashee Rice is ever going to be – he's not going to be Tyreek Hill. Like, there's only one Tyreek Hill. But could he emerge as the most reliable fantasy receiver in this offense, even if the most reliable fantasy receiver in this offense gives you 15 points a week on average? Then Rashee Rice is the guy. He's making plays. We've seen him take screen plays, go over the middle. On the outside, he's doing a little bit of everything. And you got to remember, he's a rookie. This is only his 7th game, and he's giving us double-digit PPR points in all but 2 of them, and now in 3 straight. I think if he's a buy low guy, I don't know if he's a league winner, but he's somebody you could consistently start in a wide receiver through your flex spot. He's probably not going to lose you the week, but Rashee Rice is probably that missing component now where, okay, if we can't go to Kelce, we have that reliable receiver.
Anthony, the Bills are 4-3. They get bombed in London. Okay, it's in London. Jacksonville is out there the extra week. Jacksonville's a good team. All right, we let that one go. They have to come home. They play the Giants at home on Sunday night. The Giants should have beaten them. They didn't. But again, we excuse the Bills in that one because the Bills are coming back from London. So, okay, maybe that's a travel problem. They go to New England. They give up 29 points. They're missing Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver on the interior line. That's huge. Matt Milano's not coming back this year. He's their coverage linebacker who can ice the middle of the field. Tre'Davious White's gone. And I don't know if this defense is going to be good the rest of the way. Thoughts?
Look what New England's offense, this porous, atrocious offense managed to do. And I don't think it's a question, is this defense going to be good? I don't think it is. When you lose Milano, in the mid-level, and then you lose White on the back end, they're your two best players at the second, third level of this defense. So this defense is going to be in trouble. And even when Milano was in there, you were able to run the football. Go look what Breece Hall did in week 1 to bring the Jets to victory. So this defense is in trouble, and I think this offense is in trouble. If, Josh Allen, 9 total turnovers. If this was Dak Prescott, national media would be hanging him, calling for Cooper Rush. I don't know why Josh Allen keeps getting a pass. This is, perennially, he makes big-time mistakes, cost you the game, a lot of turnovers. I think the loss of Brian Dable is haunting Josh Allen.
You know what? Yes. And when Josh Allen had that breakout year in his third year, it was a thing that blew me away. But then we see when Dable left, we started to see the completion percentage regress, more of the YOLO plays not working out. You're right. Right now for fantasy, Josh Allen is still getting it done for you.
Right.
So you're fine there. He rushed for a touchdown. He threw for 2. Fine. He's not giving you the week winning performances you wanted. Neither was Mahomes. And for a while, Hurts wasn't either. But the two that are coming around are Hurts and Mahomes. Josh Allen will still be fine. You're starting him, but I don't know we're going to see a bunch of those ceiling games, and that's unfortunate. Let's move on to the Chargers. Charlene had asked a question about what happened to Keenan Allen, and in that game against the Chiefs, well, the first thing that I worried about with Keenan Allen was when Mike Williams got hurt, and I know Keenan Allen's dealt with this before, but he would be bracketed. Teams are willing to let Josh Palmer beat them. I think they figure out, you know what? Yeah, he'll make some plays, but ultimately Keenan Allen could beat us more. And Mike Williams, when he was healthy, was somebody to worry about, but they're going to bracket him. And Keenan Allen is going to see a lot of pressure from opposing defenses. Also, Austin Eckler. All right, last week on Monday night, comes back. He's coming from a high ankle. First game back. All right, doesn't have a good game. We thought he could run on Dallas. He really didn't. Didn't get too much done as a receiver. Well, it was no better this week. 14 carries for 45, 1 catch for 1 yard. And is this going to be a high ankle that's going to linger for a long time? Is he beginning to age? He's 28 and change now. What's going on with Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen?
I think Kansas City's defense, we say it every week, this is the best defense Patrick Mahomes has ever had, especially early in the season. They usually struggle early and then somehow find their way going into the playoffs in December and January. This is a very good defense that Spags is putting out there. I'm not too worried. Keenan Allen has been pretty productive with and without Mike Williams this season. I just think Kansas City's secondary, that they're a lot to deal with right now. When it comes to Austin Eckler, he had a game at week 1, really good game by Eckler. And then, the 2 games since coming back from injury, kind of pedestrian. Does that have to do with the injury? I guess, but, should we not expect this from a 28, 29-year-old running back? What is concerning is that Kelly gets going yesterday, had that big, long run.
Right. And that was a stunner.
Is this going to be a 2-headed monster moving forward?
Oh, well, if Eckler's ankle is not 100%, and there are times there are people that over the years have pointed out a number of players that came back from high ankles and were never the same. Some are fine, but not all. So it really depends on the player. Like you said, aging, 28's young in human years, but in NFL years, you're getting to that point, and recovery from injury is not as easy as it was when you were in your younger 20s. Back to Keenan Allen. Go ahead.
I think we'll find out a lot more these two games since Eckler's been back, Dallas, Kansas City, two of the top run defenses. It opens up. They get Chicago, the Jets, two of the worst. Then they get Detroit, and then coming out of Detroit in week 11, you got Green Bay. So 3 out of the next 4 should be monster games for Austin Eckler if he's okay. If Austin Eckler doesn't go off, then we should worry.
Now back to Keenan Allen. So in the last 2 games with Mike Williams, he goes 8 for $111 and 2 touchdowns in week 2. Against Minnesota in week 3, he goes 18 for 215, and he throws a 49-yard touchdown pass. Since Mike Williams has been gone, he went against Vegas, 3 catches, 32, and a touchdown. He did okay against Dallas, 7 for 85 and a touchdown. Not the ceiling he had, but still, we're not going to argue. And then 4 for 55 last week. So realistically, 2 of the 3 games without Mike Williams have been okay, but they haven't been what Keenan Allen obviously wasn't keeping up that pace. You do 100 yards a game, that's a 1,700-yard season, and you're not doing that. But to me, the offense has had a clear drop-off without Mike Williams. Anyway, is Justin Herbert, who now he hasn't gone over 2 touchdown passes since week 3. He did rush for 2 in one game. That helped. Is Justin Herbert going to be able to carry this team, or are they going to be kind of spinning down the cycle right now, spinning down the drain right now?
Again, it's like I referenced with Austin Eckler. The schedule is going to open up a little bit. You get Chicago, you get the Jets, Detroit. Like these should be games where the offense should catch fire. So I want to wait and see because, believe it or not, Vegas, Dallas, KC, the past 3 games, Vegas is actually 10th against quarterbacks in fantasy. Yes. Dallas 8th, KC 4th. So this was a gauntlet 3-game run. And now you get a 3 to 4 game stretch where this offense should get going again. So I feel like we'll know a lot if they can bounce back.
All right. Charlene was asking what we think about tonight's game, and good news. We always preview the Monday night game before we get out of here, and we're very excited to talk about this one as well. 49ers at the Vikings. Obviously, the big injury, Deebo Samuel is out. The most recent reports say Christian McCaffrey is expected to play. Left tackle Trent Williams is doubtful. That's a massive injury for them because their line is decent players. I'm giving a little credit, but Trent Williams is the stabilizing force, the all-world left tackle. The Vikings, we know, they come in hot with the blitz. They blitz because they know Brian Flores knows their corners are terrible. And so the problem is the only way to not let them sit out there in coverage is by bringing heat. It's a big risk reward. Well, the 49ers, they're the masters of getting the ball out quickly and into space. Deebo often does a lot of that. Kittle might be needed to block here because of the blitz. Yeah. So I'm looking heavy at Brandon Ayuk here. Yep. What are your overall thoughts on the 49ers offense in this matchup?
I'm all in on Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy. Purdy's been playing pretty well. A little bit of a hiccup the past 2 games, but again, the matchups were tough. Minnesota, what they actually do well defensively, they can stop the run a little bit, but they're one of the worst secondaries. I think 2nd or 3rd worst in defending the pass. And I think no Deebo Samuel and possibly a limited CMC helps Brandon Ayuk. We have not seen Brandon Ayuk pop for that monster game since week 1. Hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1. This could be one of those monster Brandon Ayuk games. And I think it has to be.
Hey, Joe Mosca's in the house. Good to see you. Bryce Ridley's in the house. Welcome aboard, everybody. Glad everybody's here with us today. Caden's here. Welcome. All right. So when we're also looking at this game, Brandon Ayuk this year, he's running more downfield routes than he had in the past. But don't forget, Brandon Ayuk was very well versed in the short target game, especially his first year. When Deebo missed time, he got those underneath routes. So he can transition right into that role. They're going to need that role. I don't know you want the downfield role in this one because what Flores does with those defenders also, he puts them into a shell. He doesn't want to give up big plays over the top. And that defense, I doubt he's going to have a big adjustment here because Ayuk can get over the top. But again, with Trent Williams not likely to play, Deebo could see 12 to 14 targets in this game. And with his ability to run through the middle of the field is going to be largely vacated because of the blitz and the deep shell. So he's going to get chunk plays of 10 to 15 yards at regularity. So betting the over prop on his yardage for sure. How about the touchdown prop, Anthony?
I like both. Touchdown wise, I believe the Vikings have given up 6 touchdowns to wide receivers, and they've been dominated by, wide receiver 1 and 2s all season long. I expect that to continue. Guys like, Mike Evans scored, Devonta Smith, Williams, and Palmer scored in that Chargers game in week 3. Williams 121-1, Keenan Allen 18 for 215. We saw Thielen go 6 or 7 for 76, which hits the over on the prop. Rashee Rice scores a couple weeks ago. Last week, Chicago. That doesn't mean Minnesota's defense got better. That just means Justin Fields didn't play a lot in that game. And we know Kansas City wide receivers aren't lighting the world on fire. So I'm expecting this Vikings defense to get lit up. I like Ayuk's touchdown scoring prop, the over on his receiving yards, and I'm a ladder better. I would ladder Brandon Ayuk's receiving yards prop from the main line, which is, I believe, 71.5 up to 125, which pays roughly plus 410.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. And I did that. I can't remember the player. I did that with a player last week. It was AJ Brown. Ramped him up.
He hit last night too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Insane how good he is. All right, let's go to the Minnesota side of the ball. So basically what we have here is Minnesota's offensive line is amazing. Now, Ezra Cleveland, their left guard, will be out. Not the worst loss, not the best loss, but it's not going to be as critical as losing Darisaw or and the other top lineman they have. But that said, they're top 3 in pass protection. They're number 1 in run blocking. San Francisco is the number 1 defense in pressure, in coverage, and they've been fine against the run. They're not the lights out run unit they are, but no running back has gone over 52 yards against them. And that was in a game where Jerome Ford had this crazy late success in that wild game. Other than that, the only tough running back they faced was Tony Pollard, 8 for 29, but that game was out of hand early. So that said, I don't think Alexander Madison's terrible anyway. And the only 2 games he played well were the 2 cake matchups. It was the Chargers and the Panthers. Otherwise, he's well less than 3 yards per carry. I don't think he has any chance of moving the ball on the ground here. And that brings us to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, he is at home here, which helps. But we have the pass rush. Jordan Addison is in that number 1 role. What are we expecting from the passing game against this 49ers defense with Minnesota at home?
In Cousins' career, you'd have to go back to 2017. He started in 4 matchups. You'd have to go back to Washington 2017, the only game over 300 passing yards. In the 3 games since he's been with the Vikings that he's played the 49ers, the most recent being 2021, the oldest 2018, fewer than 244 passing yards. So 244, the last time out, 238, and the one in the middle in 2020, 172. He's thrown a pick in 3 out of 4 career games. So you bet the over on Cousins interceptions. I think he throws one. I think you bet the under on his passing yards total, which is roughly 238.5, depending on your book.
Now, Jordan Addison, he had 6 for 64 to touchdown and 9 targets in the first game. I think Jefferson was out, and then 3 for 28 and a touchdown on 5 targets last week. Bailed out with the touchdown because he had no production otherwise. People are asking a lot of questions about Jordan Addison. What does he do? He probably sees a lot of Charvarius Ward. I don't think it's a shadow situation, but even that Diamador Lenoir has been positive, but he'll get help on that side anyway. So how do we think Addison's going to turn out in this game?
I think he'll be solid, right? Like Addison, what has he really given us? A high floor, double-digit PPR points, at least 11.2 in all but one game. The one game, Carolina, the anomaly, where he completely blanks. But almost like Rashee Rice, very high floor, 3 games over 16. He probably has to score to give you more than that 11-point cushion. But, 49ers aren't invincible. They're middle of the pack against fantasy wide receivers. So at this point, if Jordan Addison's your starting lineup, 6 buys, injuries, you have to hope he just doesn't give you single digits at this point. So we're probably looking at 10 to 18 points.
Early in the season, Jordan Addison had 2 long touchdowns, and they both came on blown coverages because the defense was so hell-bent on stopping Justin Jefferson. The safety wouldn't even look Addison's way. he would just like look into the other side. And now with no Justin Jefferson, those blown coverages aren't happening because he's getting the treatment because nobody's worried about KJ Osborne and nobody's worried about Brandon Powell. And if TJ Hawkinson is going to be a factor, Fred Warner probably could just be on him in this game because they don't have to worry about their corners needing any additional help from anybody else. So I could see TJ Hawkinson being screwed in this game. And I would bet the under on his yardage, but I'm always scared because he could get 12 targets. But Fred Warner, there might not even be like a sliver of space to throw him the ball. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, 49ers, they're pretty good against the tight end. And I was trying to find an angle to get Hawkinson in a play because I do expect him to get targets. So, like, I'm running a builder parlay based off of reception. So, Hawkinson, 3 receptions, Madison, 3 receptions, and Ayuk, 3 receptions. That 3-leg parlay on FanDuel pays minus 105, but they also give you that 3-leg parlay boost. You can actually get that to plus odds.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we're playing the lowest possible, like Hawkinson. Maybe he doesn't get you 5 or 6, but I think he gets you 3. Ayuk, he averages around 4 or 5. He'll get you 3. And then Madison, with no Justin Jefferson, he's been getting the targets. I think he has at least 3 catches in all but 1 or 2 games. So that's a very safe 3-reception, 3-leg parlay. And if you use your FanDuel boost on it, minus 105 turns into plus odds.
I love that. So let's pick this game. 49ers are -7. The over and under is 43. We've already given you some prop ideas on this one. Are the 49ers covering this one on the road?
I think so. I don't know if I'm touching this game, but if I had to, I'm probably taking the 49ers to cover.
Yeah, me as well. It's the thing where how is Minnesota scoring points here?
Yeah.
That really is concerning to me because that loss of Justin Jefferson is a force multiplier.
Yeah.
The defense could play you so differently. And it just Jefferson could beat double coverage, brackets, but the other receivers all saw less coverage because of him. And that force multiplier now was like you could play them straight and bring extra pressure on obvious passing down. And if Kirk Cousins is under pressure, that could get really ugly real fast. The 49ers, if they could score 16 points, that may be enough. It may be enough. I don't know if Minnesota scoring more than 10 points here.
I don't think so. They're just in a weird spot right now. I don't trust Kirk Cousins. Like the whole primetime narrative, there is always something to it. And again, historically in his career, he doesn't show up against the San Francisco 49ers. There's a lot going against Kirk Cousins. And the total at FanDuel set at 43. I don't know if there's enough points on either side because who knows how healthy McCaffrey is? Who knows how healthy Trent Williams is? And there's no Debo. So I think the 49ers might want to just get the hell out of here. I think they'll cover, score just enough to do that and walk out healthy, hopefully.
My thought is the easiest, safest bet you can make in this game is a 2-leg teaser where you would tease the 49ers from -7 to -1, and you would then take the under, which would get boosted all the way to 49. This game ain't hitting 49, right, Anthony?
It would be shocking if it did. But then again, like I didn't expect the Colts Browns to have a million points in it, but that did.
Oh, right. The NFL is wacky. When you think you know something, you know nothing. Peter King said that. And I always remember that line. It's just so ingrained in my head. We try our best to give you edges. Anthony, tell everybody where they can find you, about your work, and any promos if people want to bet this game.
Yeah, if you want to bet this game, you can go right to RotoWire, our sports betting section. You'll see the best sportsbook promos, whether it's FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM. We have affiliates with all the top legal sports books. And you can follow my personal work at The Real NFL Guru and at fffaceoff.com, Faceoff Sports Network.
And you want to watch the FF Face-Off show. Anthony does great work. Like I said, a couple of years ago, I remember I had a great run of working in an off season with Anthony. Unfortunately, RotoWire responsibilities became too much, and I couldn't keep going. But man, I enjoyed Anthony. Just
we
is
crossed paths
phenomenal.
again, though, so that's great.
I know this is great. We get to work together on Mondays. But Anthony's show is great, so make sure you're following that. Everybody, for Anthony Cervino, I'm Jim Coventry. Catch everybody tomorrow, 11 a.m.